What's up, Purist? It's Bob from Purist Motorsports. We got a pretty unique car behind us. It's, Saleen employee owned it. It's a coupe, and it has a very unique story. And it's not been in public very much in the last few years. Hell, I mean, really not forever. Truthfully, it's not one I've seen until recently. So
you'll see it now.
Let's get started. Okay, Mark, thanks again for having us. This is, it's been awesome to look at a lot of these cars. This one, I will admit, I have not ever seen prior to maybe just a few months ago when I think you may have acquired it a year. I don't know how long it's been.
I want to say I owned it a little bit over a year ago.
Yeah.
This is a really weird car. This is not the car you're going to see at a Saleen show. This is not a car you're going to see at a stoplight. This car, being the fact it's a coupe. And the first thing people say is, Saleen never built coupes. Well, they did. They built roughly 60-ish cars, a little bit under 60 cars.
Yep.
But they only built one in this pastel gray. And a lot of people say it looks like primer with a little bit of clear coat on it.
It does. I'm not going to lie. It kind of does. But you know what? This is actually kind of a modern color. In a sense, a little darker, but you see it on modern Tundras.
It is now.
You know,
it is now. But one of the reasons this color, I don't think, was put on a lot of cars. I think once the dealers ordered and it showed up, they were just like, and they didn't do it. Well, this was owned by a Saleen employee, and this car is really, really kind of cool because it's car number 4, and usually cars that are number 10 and under are internal cars and company cars. And Steve didn't build a lot of coupes. I don't think he was a real coupe fan. But this guy's got his dad to buy the car for him, and when he worked at Saleen, it sat outside at Saleen for 3 or 4 months before they built it, according to Jimmy Moore and the other people that I talked to.
Now, Jimmy, for those that aren't viewing, he was the
production manager.
Right.
He was the production manager.
Yep.
And this car is, the coolest thing about this car is when you look at the build sheet, it was ordered with wheels delete and interior delete.
That's interesting.
Do you know why? Well, what does it look like? It's dressed up to look like an SSC.
Yep.
But we all know an SSC car was a hatchback.
Right.
And it was white. Well, you got to remember, when this guy worked for Saleen, that was like the hot car. Those cars were $36,000 brand new. That was exotic territory. So this particular car, he wanted to make look like an SSC. And he was on a budget because he was working at Saleen, actually building cars.
I can relate. Oh
yeah, you know what a budget's like when you're building a car. So
especially young, when you're young.
The story he told me was that he went to Jimmy and he said, hey, there's a set of seats on the rack. What were those for? Well, these seats that were in this car, and we'll show you better pictures of it later, were prototype seats when they were trying to figure out what would look the best in the SSC. And there was a set of wheels that were all scuffed up and needed to be repainted that they didn't want to put on a brand new car. And he said, well, can I buy those too? And Jimmy worked out a deal. So when the car was built, it was built without wheels and interior. So he took some used pieces and made his own SSC car.
Okay.
And the story that he told me was that Steve was not real happy when this car was built because the SSC car was supposed to be a hatchback. And he did not let him put the graphics on the side.
Oh, the SSC graphics?
Correct. The SSC stripes were not put on until he left.
Oh, okay.
And then he got the stripes from the original Saleen decal vendor and put those on. But it's the same DP wheels, front and rear. And then he decided he wanted to add a Vortex supercharger to it. Actually, it was a Paxton to begin with. And this car was featured in one of the Muscle Mustangs or Mustang Monthly magazines years ago, with them putting a Paxton on it, one of the ball drive ones. Then he later had converted it to a Vortex.
So when you mentioned wheels being the same as the SSC?
The same as the SSC.
Okay.
And he owned the car since new, and I bought the car, my timeline might be off, I want to say about 2 years ago. And I'd been talking to him about buying this car because I like all the weird one-off stuff. And
it's got it's a unique story and history to it. That really does.
Story makes the car,
Yep.
and that's what's exciting about the car is the story. And I finally convinced him to sell me the car. And I never flew to California to see it or anything. I bought it off pictures. I wired him a bunch of money for the car and sort of sat back and went, I hope this shows up and looks nice. The pictures of it in his garage, it had blankets all over it. And like you see these barn finds, there was stuff all over the top of the car. So I was a little worried it might be dented up, but it came in and all it needed was a little bit of wax and a little bit of love and a little cleanup and some fresh gas, and it was ready to rock and roll.
Well, it's cool. Coupes are always unique. I admit I'm not a huge coupe fan, just never been. I know there are a lot of guys out there that would be like, what? How can you? And I'm a hatchback guy, and I guess it comes from being like a road racer, not a drag racer.
Right, but I mean this iconic rear and the way that these cars drive and the way that they handle. Originally I hated these cars until I owned a few of them and drove them, and I'm like, wow, this car drives so much nicer, and you don't have that rear hatch wobble and noises.
Yeah. Squeaks, rattles, what you call it. But it looks like, he's got the 2-point.
Yeah, he put the 2-point bar in it also, and he had the rear seat done by an upholstery shop after the fact because they didn't have this rear seat for the SSC car because it didn't have a rear seat. So he had that done later, and it's all leather. He put a personal wheel in it. The car does not have cruise, and it's a roll-up window car too.
It is. I noticed that. But he's got the leather inserts.
Correct.
Across what would replace what would have been there from Ford. It's well done. I mean, this is really cool.
It's a really neat car. It's nice to have something when you have a collection of cars that's really a standout and really just like kind of a weird car, and that's why I like this car.
Yeah, it's definitely unique. Let's pop the hood. Let's look at
Sure.
You got a supercharged. Of course, it's Vortec. You said now.
It's a Vortec unit now. Probably the neatest thing about this is it's got a custom discharge tube that fits underneath the tower brace. The first thing the guys did when they put a blower on one of these cars is, here, I'll change spots with you, was that they would take the discharge tube, take the tower brace off because there was no way to snake it underneath there.
Well, I will say that I know that on Bleakley Ford in 89 and 90, 89, not 90, 89 with these braces, they were having to do some stuff because they were putting blowers on it.
Right, they actually had a concoction that they actually tilted it and they made their own couplers and made it all work.
Bent it, yeah. They kind of pushed it down, or I know on some cars, it may have been, say, John Bleakley's wife or something, the strut brace was actually bent around it. But
interesting,
it's very unique. So they had to obviously do some cool stuff. But this is a very nice piece to be done like that and get around it. And it's very clean.
The car runs and drives really, really well. It's a fun car. It's still really, really tight. And I want to say it's a super low mileage car. I can't remember what the miles were on this particular car. But, original paint on this car also. And it was very striking when it came off the truck because, is it gray? Is it white? What is it? And, like you said, it's a modern looking color today from 1988.
Yeah. I like this color better. I think really for me, this is a coupe that does it for me. Just because of the color. And of course the SSC stripes, just the yellow and this, I don't know what you call it, concrete white. I know you call it.
Sure.
I've called it dove gray before.
There's multiple names for this color.
Yeah, it's probably not correct, but I just think that the yellow really accents this with that. It just really is striking.
Well, the interesting part about this is that before we put this into the PAS collection, one of my partners was like, I really don't like these coupes. I don't like this color, but oh my God, this car is so cool, and I love the way that it looks. And I thought he was kidding with me because I was going to keep the car for myself. And he's like, no, I really think we ought to put this into the car collection. I'm like, okay.
Wow.
And it's been sitting in this warehouse, unfortunately, for a little while. I haven't gotten it back out to play with it again, but I'm just glad that we're able to dig it out.
But this is cool, man. Mark, I really appreciate it.
Well, I'm glad you came out today, and hopefully we can dig some more out if the weather cooperates with us. It's been on and off all day between showers, so. But you're welcome anytime to come back and take a look at any of the cars we have in the collection.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate you.
All right, Purist, that does it for the one of one 89 coupe. It's a pretty unique story, isn't it? Don't forget to like, subscribe, tag, and share. Also, go to puristmotorsports.com. We've got a lot of content there, updates on our projects, things you can read. Some of the videos make it there too. Also, check in with Mark, performanceautosport.com. If you have a need for a car, if you have something that you want to try to find, he's capable of being able to get that for you. So thanks to Mark again. We really appreciate you. And as always, whether you're driving them or restoring them, always enjoy them. Peace.